specifically about the environment back then, did you think about it?
Until I got exposed to it in the US.
Right.
In 2010, I thought of doing air quality because the theory of change was that, data is important and it should be affordable by every member of the country.
Right.
So for the same price, we are all breathing the same air, so we should have access to the same data at the same cost. Financial security was a big factor in starting the company, and the savings through the mutual funds were providing reasonable returns. So I said, okay, we can stop the monthly income for a year or so. And then we, 2017, decided to, go all out with the company.
So amidst all this din and noise about superstar investors and F&O traders, hardly anybody asks about mutual fund investors. What is the journey of an ordinary mutual fund investor? And many of these have extremely special journeys and very fascinating lives. Today we're going to talk to Ronak Sutaria, whose startup does something that is so crucial to our lives. They measure the quality of the very air that we breathe. And he's also a long-time mutual fund investor. Ronak, welcome.
Thanks, Neil.
So if you can start with your childhood. Where did you grow up? What was it like?
So I was born and raised in Mumbai, in Santa Cruz actually.
Right.
So pretty much born in Villeparle and went to school in Khar. So the whole life, I think the first till my 10th grade was in that area.
Yeah.
So my mom is a teacher, a high school teacher in my same school where I studied.
Right.
Father's an engineer.
Was that complicated, your mom being a teacher?
It did. I didn't score well in the subject she taught. So I was struggling. She taught Gujarati. It's an ICSE school. And so I was an average Gujarati student, but overall I did quite okay. I think I was in the top 10 in the class.
That's not okay. That's way above okay.
Well, yeah, it was a small class of 50 students. So in both divisions. But yeah, so overall schooling was, I went to this Jasupin ML High School in Khar. Father's an engineer and metallurgical materials engineer, and gradually moved into manufacturing and did a few other things over the years. So we've had this background of building things and creating products kind of experience in the house. So engineering kind of became a progression. I don't think there was any other domain that I closely evaluated outside of engineering after high school. So.
And specifically about the environment back then, did you think about it?
I think, I used to be able to tell the difference between cities, and I had traveled a little bit abroad over the years, and I could see why people are drawn to going abroad. The quality of life was something. I used to drink water from a tap when you go abroad, and here, the frenzy of buying bottled water everywhere. So those things did stand out to me. That why is people elsewhere so comfortable with their environment.
Yeah.
But yeah, that technically analyzing that whole situation didn't happen until, frankly, until I got exposed to it in the US.
Right.
In 2010, I was in SF in San Francisco, where I started, meeting researchers who were critically analyzing this whole space.
Yeah.
That's when I kind of got a window into.
Yeah. Oddly enough, when I was a kid, Diwali and the amount of air pollution bothered me.
Yes.
When you're supposed to enjoy it as a kid, but
Yeah.
I never did.
Yeah.
And the noise and the smoke just ruined it for me. Did
Yeah.
you have any such?
I did. I used to have. I still have sneezing bouts. And when a sneezing bout comes, it'll be about 10, 15, 20, and you just take it as a normal thing, And then I had runny noses for a long time, and you don't attribute it to anything.
Yeah.
Until now that I work in this field, I can directly correlate it to certain triggers. But back then you just felt that you are the one who's not doing well, and you are the one to blame because you're not taking care of your health. So it's only now that I know that there are sources that you can attribute this problem to. So, but you're right, yeah.
And it feels like it's come a full circle, right? With your son's cough and cold.
So that is true. Tragically, and whenever we travel outside the city, we moved from Bombay to Pune.
Yeah.
So in 2021 is when I moved to Pune,
Yeah.
thinking that we are marginally going to improve our lives.
Yeah.
But Pune is also as congested. We can barely walk to places. So now we are on the lookout for the next less congested city.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you are right, it is a challenging situation because this is what I worked for about 6-7 years before he was born. And
Yeah.
now that he's born, I'm like grappling with this right
All of these things. Do you have any places in mind that you would like to?
Well, I think my wife wants to move to Goa, which is not practical from a work perspective. But I don't honestly have one. I'm analyzing all the cities in India. So we frequently come out with this 130 city report because there are 132 cities which have received clean air funds. So we are frantically, South of course is very clean. But so we've not yet.
So which is the cleanest air city?
I think invariably it shows up in Kerala. Whenever we've analyzed cities,
Lovely.
it invariably the Kerala cities. But that's also a factor of how much monitoring is done. Not all of India is monitored well, which is a problem we are aiming to solve. But from the data available, Kerala tends to show up quite a bit consistently.
And I guess for the most polluted, it's not too hard.
There are no guesses, but funnily, of course, UP tops, Bihar tops.
Not Delhi.
Delhi tends to be in the top 10,
Right.
but from a numerical perspective, there are a couple of other cities, that Bhiwandi in Rajasthan shows up as number 1, but people don't trust that monitor because it's always throughout the year very, very high. So maybe there's something off. But those kind of outliers, when you do very data-driven and you also do a lot of data-driven things, we feel data is not representative enough for India, which is the problem we are trying to solve.
Yeah.
That the current government data is not representative of the situation.
Yeah.
So we are looking at technologies which can solve that problem, along with, of course, finding solutions to the problem.
Yeah. So going back to your journey, Ronak.
Yeah.
You grew up in Bombay.
Yeah.
And you went to the US to study engineering.
So I finished my engineering in Bombay, then moved to Bangalore for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in the Malleshwaram, Sadashivnagar. I was working at IISc Bangalore on a research project. 3 years in Bangalore was an excellent experience. Frankly, I was waiting to get out of Bombay.
Yeah.
So at the first opportunity, I got a position at IISc, so I packed bags and moved to Bangalore.
And this is before the massive expansion of Bangalore and
True. So 2000 December is when I interviewed in Bangalore. In
Yeah.
2001, I moved to Bangalore.
amazing.
So in fact, I remember 9/11. Funnily, I had joined my job, and the third day of my job, the towers came down.
Yeah.
And we were all sitting in the lab watching the towers coming down. And I was like, okay, my career, the first job and this event was happening.
Yeah.
So it is a very vivid memory that we were all in the lab watching it kind of come down. But yeah, so I spent 3 years in Bangalore, excellent experience, beautiful city, the garden city.
Yeah.
And then moved to the US.
I was just thinking back to my memory of the towers coming down. I remember my sister, I was probably 13 or something back then, 12. And my sister called me and she said that something's happened in America.
Yeah.
The first thought that came to my regular mind is, okay, but हमें इससे क्या लेना? Not listening to the whole world is going to change
That's true.
after that.
I think World Trade Tower, because in Bombay we've been to the World Trade, so I kind of associated with those towers are much smaller, they're 35 story towers in Bombay.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh wow, such a tower can come down, and we saw it in real time
Yeah.
on TV, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite an event. So yeah, then Bangalore happened, and I loved Bangalore the 3 years. So then,
What's your favorite place to be? Bangalore?
most of it will be in Malleshwaram, and I would say the favorite place, actually Bhima's I used to go a lot on Church Street. Then Koshi's of course is there.
It's a classic.
The Koshi's, in fact this time also I went to Koshi's. So I enjoy Koshi's, so a lot of places on Church Street
Yeah.
and Malleshwaram and all.
Church Street is amazing now, right? They paved the
Yeah,
whole, it's beautiful.
yeah. I love Bangalore. I love the Sadashivnagar to Church Street side of the city.
Yeah.
I never ventured in my 3 years. Koramangala was the furthest for me. Now, of course, Bangalore is a different world, and I can't recognize it. But back in 2001, Koramangala was as far as
It got-
one could go.
Yeah.
So now it's a different world.
Tell me about the US.
So US was very interesting. I went to NJIT, New Jersey Institute. So I had received a scholarship and I did my master's there. I had an amazing professor. The two professors I worked closely with, one was a Greek professor, Manikopoulos. He was my advisor, thesis advisor. And then there was a Romanian professor. Funnily, the Romanian professor got me introduced to sensors. So I took his course and I did routing protocols for sensors. And that's ended up being what I wanted to do in my career. Yeah.
So sensors are machines that monitor air quality.
Correct. So sensors are very small devices, which are picking up signals. So I focus more on the routing side of how that data is routed and all. So that was a course I had taken.
Yeah.
So the US, the first year and a half was a master's course. I did my MS in computer science and electronics. So EE and CS, what they call. It's a good experience, And then from there, I moved to California. So I got a job.
The dream, the Indian dream.
I guess so, man. Any Indian engineer, wants to head to the Bay Area, and that's became the de facto. I, of course, applied in New York quite a bit. In fact, I had a lot of interviews on the fintech side. But eventually, I did work in the banking security sector, but a traditional tech company to that effect. Yeah.
There would be a lot of hiring happening in fintech and banking, right? Because this would be
2005, I graduated. I finished in 2005, December 2005. So Jan 2006 is when I started the job. Hiring was good, Just a few years prior, in the Bay Area, it used to be like trespassers will be recruited. The hiring was at such a high that if you're just, little bit capable, walking around, you will get hired. But of course, the 2001 crash, reduced a bit of that. But yeah, the jobs came along and then I moved to first in Sunnyvale and then I moved to San Francisco. Good experience. End of the day, SF is SF.
Yeah.
It's a great city. So.
And this is before some of the crazy housing prices.
Absolutely. Yeah, that housing stuff I think is 2010 and later. Rents were high, but not as crazy as what I've heard in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So that time it was a sought after city. It was one of the top 5 cities in the US to live in. But mostly I think the beautiful is SF has so many parks and all like Bangalore.
Yeah.
And I was a bachelor there, so every weekend we used to be just out and roaming around on. Yeah. It was a great experience.
But you had to drive, right?
I drove to work, yes. So, funnily, people with families lived in the Bay Area and worked in SF. And bachelors lived in SF and worked in the Bay Area. And it's a 30-mile drive one way, which used to take me about 45 minutes to drive.
Yeah.
But the drive was along the ocean.
Oh, wow.
So, that US 1 or 101, I think they call it.
It's amazing.
So, it was a beautiful drive. I never honked in my 3 years of driving, man. I don't kid you, but I didn't honk once. If you honk, then it's like you'll remember it for a few days. I have to honk. But so that was the life there. Frankly, the whole engineering team was folded. So I was in the banking sector. I was actually in London when the Lehman collapse happened. So Lehman, I think, happened in 2009, if I'm not, or 2008, I think, 2008 November or something. We were doing banking security, verified by Visa program. And there was a memo which came from the CEO that all activities are going to freeze. Like it doesn't matter what you're doing, no more spending. So in March 2009, there was a blanket ban on spending, which essentially even meant salaries they stopped. So then there's very little choice but to. And in such a time, I was in H1, and shifting H1s is
Tough.
Very tough. So then, and I was funnily, I had a few job offers just prior to the collapse. Really good Adobe kind of offers and all, which I didn't take, and I regretted that. And then I just decided to pack bags and move back. That's the luxury of having family in India and having a house in India.
Correct.
So I didn't have to scramble.
Correct.
So, to be fair, the house was there and it was always welcoming, so I said, okay, fine, let's move back.
Right. So did you have investments in the US back then and you saw their value collapse in the 2008, 2009?
I had 401ks. I don't think it was large enough to really notice that much, and I don't think I was tracking investment. I don't think investment was on my mind that time that much.
Yeah.
You know, because probably the quantum must be, I don't know, $10,000 maybe in that order. So I don't think I tracked it, how it was doing.
Yeah.
You know, there were a lot of other things playing on the mind. The visa was such a big thing on the mind that, probably it must have, I'm sure it must have fallen a lot, but yeah.
Right. So you got back to India 2009.
2009 and I got back. That's
Right. And then what did you do?
So then for a few months, you know, I tried doing things with friends. You know, I did Karma Yog karke, there's an organization back in the day in Bombay, started by Vinay Somani. So I started engaging with him in building tech solutions for the civic kind of issues. You know, so Karma Yog used to be a very popular portal in Bombay that time. So 6 months I engaged with him and we built out a few things. And then I moved to Mindtree. A very close friend of mine was in Mindtree. So for 4 years, they wanted to build out an IoT division.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined them in the R&D group and started driving the IoT projects.
Right.
So I did that for 4 years actually.
In Bombay, right?
I did it in Bombay, Bangalore. I used to shuttle a lot. So, but yeah, primarily I would work out of Bombay. In fact, Pune also. So I used to come to the Pune office quite a lot, the Bombay office and the Bangalore office. So all three equal.
Yeah.
So Mindtree happened, and then so Mindtree 4 years was a decent journey. You know, big company, services model. So made a lot of good friends there.
Yeah.
So, and it's a good company, you know. I mean, I got a chance to meet Subroto Bachi.
Right.
And he is, I think, one thing I learned a lot is how to take care of people and how people are taken care of as an organization. I mean, they were traditionally known as a company which had a very high factor in terms of employee satisfaction and people policies.
Right. Give me an example. So you hear of all these Google engineers getting all kinds of freebies in office.
Yeah. So I think just the flexibility of where I can work, you know, they were very accommodating. Because I got a job in Pune and then I said I wanted to work out of Bombay and they were okay with that. And then they needed me to come to Bangalore. I used to go a bit, but I was not asked to move there.
Did you get free meals in office?
No, I think it's fairly subsidized. So I remember their Bangalore office has a global village it's called. So they have decent setup. But I had worked in TCS for a year, so I knew the internals of this kind of a organization to some extent. So it's a good place. I mean, I think in terms of quality of projects, we could have done more cutting edge stuff. But I think it has a traditional Indian services approach. Which, I think that is both their strength and their limitation.
Right.
So
at that time, did you start thinking about investing, saving up money for your future?
I think actually my father used to handle it till about 2014. I would say I used to be part of discussions at home, and because he, being an engineer, had a very analytical approach, and you know he had gone and done huge amounts of research on mutual funds and stuff. You know, he had built a tool also.
Oh, I see.
So which, you know, because we used to work with Portfolios people, I think if you know the Portfolios, so they are all ex-Mindtree people actually.
I see.
So before Mindtree there was a company called Aztecsoft, and these are founders of Aztecsoft, I believe.
Right.
And so a lot of Mindtree people have joined them, including the guy who hired me.
I see.
So I was supposed to, and I was interviewed at Portfolios, and you know they made an offer. But long story short, a lot of personal finance discussions used to happen from an analytical approach, just to understand how mutual funds should be analyzed.
That's amazing because, you know, most people of our parent generation tended to stick to real estate and gold. And my parents, most of their investments were in real estate. So how is it that he had a totally different outlook?
He's a heavily analytical person, my father, you know. So we used to subscribe to Value Research, the print copy. Back then. And then all the numbers, and then he had an Excel sheet and he will do 3 years. He had a rolling average thing. I mean, I lost track of how he used to analyze. But he had this sophisticated way of understanding the exit points, you know, because entering a mutual fund is easy. But when to exit a mutual fund, nobody knows. Especially the equity mutual funds. So he was constantly trying to find an answer to that. What is the time when you should exit? And I think he had done a whole bunch of analysis. which at one point I remember pitching into Perfios because Perfios was trying to build a personal finance tool back then. So, but yeah, long story short, I was exposed to how to analyze things, but we never executed a whole lot of things, So it was always an what is called analysis paralysis situation, that a lot of analysis and then actionable things were very few.
Yeah.
So, but I think in 2015 I exited, in 2014 I exited Mindtree. Then I took charge of my finances because then I stopped having salaried income. So then I said, okay, let me understand what is happening with my money.
Yeah.
So I had some funds because Arcot, where I used to work in the US, got acquired, and I had a stock options. So those funds were there, and then whatever others were there from Mindtree. So then I started being a little more attentive.
Yeah.
So that's 2015. Honestly, is when I started investing. You can say 2014 period. Yeah.
Tell me about your professional journey after you left Mindtree.
So Mindtree ke baad, I had decided to create a company, and I had a roommate from Bangalore with whom I had thought of starting. We wanted to do sensors, we wanted to do data. So we went into the agricultural domain, and we built a plant disease prediction solution. So we said that, I was in California, I had come across a lot of these grape vineyards, of course. And there were these sophisticated technology solutions. So I said, okay, let's bring some of that to India. And we tried that for 6 months. We kept, knocking doors at ICAR, Indian Council for Agricultural Research, and a few other places. We built out a solution also, actually. Just like air quality, I had a plant disease solution, but nobody bought it. So
back then was Sula and some of those.
Sula and all. I think we went down. We did go to Nashik also.
Yeah.
But we ended up we tried to pitch it to the government space, which I think was a mistake.
Yeah.
We should have gone to the private sector.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, it didn't take off. And back then, I had started making air quality boxes also. And that.
What gave you this idea? This is your professor in.
Actually, the UC Berkeley folks, honestly, I saw it in California, in SF. So they had already had air quality monitors all over SF in 2010 as a research project out of the college, out of the campus. And I thought that's so cool, at every corner you're collecting data. And they had done a very nice balloons which would light up based on the color of the AQI. So it had a very nice look also.
So if it was red, then problem.
Exactly. So red, yellow, so the 4 colors and 6 colors. So back then I had seen it, and I understood how they've done it. So then 2014 when
you guys have that now? You have the color?
We do have. Finally in Delhi, we work with an organization, Chintan, where we've installed street lights which change color based on AQI.
Yeah.
So in a park, there are these street lights installed by our company where the entire park's colors will change based on AQI. So, because that park is in a very, very low income, basically slum kind of neighborhood, where communicating the message is tough. So we said colors will do the job. So
can you explain to our viewers what AQI is?
So air quality index, actually, air quality is made up of, as per CPCB, it's made up of about 8 to 10 different pollutants, So just like the BSE Sensex is of 50 companies, I think, or 100, I don't know. 30 companies, okay. So like that air quality index is made up of 12 pollutants, and it's an equation. At the back of AQI, you put in the physical measured parameters of these 8 pollutants, and then you come up with a consolidated index number called AQI. So that's supposedly representative of all the pollutants. We track individual pollutants. So we go behind the scenes of AQI, and just like your 30 companies ka stock price, we have these 12. So PM 2.5, PM 10, NO2, ozone, carbon monoxide. So these are known as the criteria pollutants. Then there is benzene, toluene, and lead, and all, zinc.
So you have a park in Delhi which actually glows red like this.
Well, there are a few street lights where this happens. We are trying to find funds and trying to find support for that project.
But how did the people realize that it's the glowing red is because of?
So that has to be communicated. So there are printed flyers given to people to tell them that what color means what level of risk.
Yeah.
So it's a communications project essentially.
So going back to the idea of air quality and building something around it?
Yeah.
What gave you that?
So there were two, three things. I think one is I am fascinated by technology, primarily having had a product and technology background and seen successfully build products in California and SF. I wanted to always build products. And I wanted to build a product which is nationwide, which is usable nationwide. So agriculture was the first one. Air quality came along, the second one. And along with that, I also believed in democratization of data. That how can data fundamentally be used by a large segment of society to bring about change. So agriculture, air quality, felt like that if everybody knows about it, they will ask tough questions. And then, fundamentally the tough questions will lead to the answers. So
Yeah.
that's how I thought of doing air quality, because the theory of change was that, data is important and it should be affordable by every member of the country.
Right.
So for the same price, you, I, Ratan Tata, Mukesh Ambani should be able to afford the same quality of data.
Because we're breathing the same air.
We are all breathing the same air, so we should have access to the same data at the same cost. So it should not need somebody who is like a millionaire or a crorepati to be able to get accurate data.
If I were to play devil's advocate for a minute, I think some people would say that in a country where feeding everybody itself is a problem,
Yeah.
isn't air quality something of a first world issue?
It's true, but I think, breathing is something you can't really stop, and frankly, I view it like this that, there are cities out there which have had a problem and fixed it. And the way I view it is that while food is a problem for us, employment is a fundamental problem for us, we are repeating the mistakes which London and Los Angeles have made 30 years ago. Because somewhere in one of the places in fact, when Chhattisgarh, when I had gone, they said until we don't see smoke bellowing from our cities, we don't think progress is happening. This was told to me by I don't know, has it been quoted somewhere, or this is a quote made, at least I heard it in Chhattisgarh, that our cities are seeing progress only when we see smoke coming out of factories. I said, why should that be the sign of progress?
Yeah.
That means something is wrong somewhere.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I felt our cities are repeating the mistakes, so we can bypass some mistakes by becoming aware, and data is the best way to build awareness. So
Yeah.
that was, I think air quality, air pollution is a man-made problem, is what we believe. There are many who don't believe that, interestingly. They just feel it's an event which happens.
But do you think there's a trade-off between stricter environmental norms and the development of the country itself? Would we kill off industrialization if we were far too strict with?
I actually don't believe that. I think you can do both. You can build a lot of employment. You can also create a lot of manufacturing employment without compromising the environment. It takes more effort. It is more painful. Margins will be less. The regulation will be higher. You have to put in more effort to not pollute. It is easier to just pollute or burn cheaper fuel. But fundamentally, those who believe it should not happen, I think, they are doing the things.
Are you happy now that there's finally EVs and so many other things that are changing that old carbon-led model?
I think EV is an interesting one. It is a positive development, but I don't think it is enough to mitigate the core problem. And frankly, what is happening with EV is it has taken up the lion's share of the clean air budget. So if you know the National Clean Air Program, the 4,000 crore program, you are aware of the NCAP, the National Clean Air Program. So the National Clean Air Program was constituted by Ministry of Environment, MOEFCC, in 2019 to bring down air pollution in 132 cities in India by about 30%. So they said we are going to give ranging from 10 crores to 200 crores. Bombay got the maximum, which was 200 crores to to reduce its air pollution. Smaller cities got less, so that number varied. What has happened is almost all the cities have spent their money on EVs. Now are EVs going to automatically improve air quality? I don't think so. It may improve it by 25%, but there is still a lion's share of the problem left. So, yeah, I think EVs being done out of the clean air budget is not the most optimum way. See, because ultimately EVs should be done, but it should be done by reducing the existing petrol and diesel, increasing public transport.
Yeah.
So I think there are problems in the policy aspects of the way EVs are rolled out, not the technology aspect of it.
Public transport is a big part of this.
Public transport is not being solved. In fact, I think that's, it is being done very, very poorly.
Yeah.
So I think fundamentally, EVs is seeping into the two-wheelers, three-wheelers and four-wheelers, whereas it should be,
More buses.
taking over of the buses and things.
Going back
Yeah.
to your journey, what was your career like after Mindtree?
So then, we started this company. Back then we called it Spiral Sense, and we tried for a year actually to build agricultural solutions. And in the meantime, I used to meet journalists actually, finally data journalists. And the roots of this work was from a data journalism group, India Spend. So Govind, became a friend over time, and he invested in this.
The founder of India.
Spend. So the first year we built it under the India Spend umbrella, actually. So from the middle of 2015, I think. Yeah, correct. So we started building this solution in mid of 2015, and we launched it in December 2015. And then we took it to, in the field and in the market in 2016. So that journey, and I was trying to run it as a non-profit for as long as it was going to happen. But along the way, a lot of interest started coming from the scientific community. So they said that no, you need to run long evaluation experiments. The IITs, all the three IITs, IIT Kanpur, Bombay and Delhi got interested. So then we realized the funds were of course of an order of magnitude more. Tens of lakhs were needed to evaluate. So then we said, okay, let's form a company. So 2017 we started the company.
Right. And throughout most of this time, it was mostly your savings that...
Yeah. So frankly, I think the financial security was a big factor in starting the company. I didn't have month-to-month bills to pay, and that plays a big role on the mind.
Yeah.
The house was there. I was living. There was no rent to pay, and the savings through the mutual funds were providing reasonable returns. So I said, okay, we can stop the monthly income for a year or so. And then we, 2017, decided to, go all out with the company.
At that point, did you engage a financial advisor, or how were you withdrawing from mutual funds?
So we were withdrawing, I think, largely driven by recommendations from online portals. So I think I used to again track primarily value research and money control. And anything they said that, okay, this fund is doing good, this fund is not doing good, we just followed those advices. And then I think we used to read the value research founders' interviews and stuff, I think. So, and then of course, Mint, we used to subscribe, I think much before you joined also. So
Yes.
I think Economic Times and Mint and these two portals were the primary sources, to be honest.
So did you have a SWP setup, systematic withdrawal plan? Or
No, it was arbitrary.
Right.
Whenever there is a need for funds, we would take it. So there was no method to the madness. It was just like, you need the funds, which is the lowest return fund, take from that.
Yeah.
So that way there was no systematic or thought through process.
Yeah.
I had a tool which was tracking the returns, and whichever fund was doing the poorest is what you will take the money out of. So,
And what was your equity debt split like that?
I think it's remained 50-50. Equity must be less than 50 for
Right.
good. I think the debt, we used to just keep things parked for a long time. Back then there used to be all this, I forget the names now, but not balance, but arbitrage, something like that. So I didn't know.
Arbitrage funds.
Correct. So we had friends who were working in HDFC mutual funds in Idhar-Udhar and all. So whatever they recommended, we did. So it was all like from 5-10 different sources.
Yeah. Okay, so 2017 you launched your company.
So 2017 we launched, we on the back of 2 or 3 big projects. So we had people who had committed to 1 year of funding. So then we said, okay, then let's launch the company. We started with literally 1 intern and 1 full-time person. So for the first year and a half, it was just 2 people in the company. And the company did all right. We had projects, we were executing things. So 2018, then I had some personal time off for 6 months I had taken. Then by the end of the year, we again started picking up activities. 2019, then of course, we ramped up. So we hired 4 or 5 more people, moved into a more structured office.
In Mumbai, always was in Mumbai?
It was always in Mumbai. So we were running out of Santa Cruz, out of my home actually for the first year and a half. And then in Andheri East from 2019 onwards, or late 2018 onwards. So it was a good one. I think we had very good customers, honestly. They were we had very patient customers, I should say. So all of them came with a 1-year plan to work with us.
I was just thinking I was stuck in this massive traffic jam from BKC to
Yeah.
Andheri yesterday, 2 hours
Yeah.
breathing in endless amounts of smog.
It is crazy, Bombay, and that's the reason I exited, because I used to live in Santa Cruz, go to Andheri, spend 40 minutes each way. It's less than 10 kilometers, and it's quite chaotic. I think Bombay, Andheri East is beyond redemption.
Yeah.
So I finally gave up on that whole Andheri East to West bridges and all that. They're never ending construction going on. Yeah, I think unless you're in Nepean Sea Road, Malabar Hill, then you can say you're in Bombay. The rest of the people should just say they're in a traffic jam. And,
Okay, so then the pandemic hit.
yeah, the pandemic hit 2019, late 2019. So 2020, sorry, 2020. So we continued doing projects. We had a lot of development work going on. These are all DST supported projects. So,
sorry, what is DST?
Department of Science and Technology. So we had a 5-year project with Department of Science and Technology.
The
central government, done through IIT Kanpur. So Professor S.N. Tripathi there has a center of excellence in clean air. So we've continued doing projects with them. And so for us, frankly, work moved at a slow pace. And we were okay with it through the pandemic also. We worked through the pandemic in the office.
Ronak, you remember that image of, I think the Himalayas, that somebody shot from Chandigarh or something.
Yeah.
You can see the clear sky for the first time.
That's true. It's true, man. I think all the data showed almost a 25-30% improvement in the peak lockdown months. So that's the...
Were you guys tracking that back then?
There are papers written. We've also written papers on the effect of the lockdown. And how much nationwide improvement was seen. So NO2 levels saw substantial improvements, PM levels saw substantial improvements. Funnily, ozone is an inverse relationship to some of the other pollutants. Ozone itself is a pollutant, but it went up because some of the other pollutants came down. So there is a complex relationship in some pollutants. So those things are there. But fundamentally things improved,
We probably added a couple of years to our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the lockdown slowed people down and it was overall...
Paradoxically enough, strangely enough.
I guess so. For people who suffered and struggled, I think it was a different story. But fundamentally it showed us the anthropogenic, what is known as man-made or anthropogenic problem, how large it is. But for us, the lockdown was okay. I won't say it was too bad. We continued working. We had a whole building to ourselves, our office building, we used to work in a small room. Suddenly the entire building was available to work out of. So those are good things. So we continued building solutions in the lockdown.
And then you shifted to Pune at what point?
So in Jan 21 we moved to Pune, primarily because we knew we were expanding, and we were in a WeWork, which is a beautiful building. We were in the WeWork headquarters, and they gave us a lot of space. But we needed 2,000 square feet, which Bombay we can't afford. So then Pune became a logical. So Jan 21 we moved to Pune. We packed bags. In fact, all the employees, I remember on 1st Jan we moved. So 31st December, we loaded everything in the truck, and 2 employees came in the truck. 4 of us were renowned, and we received all the material because we had a large project from the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana (PMUY) to do an evaluation of PMUY. So we were deploying over 100 plus monitors.
Oh wow.
And it was the ministry wanted to execute the project during the lockdown, so they commissioned the project. They gave us work to do.
Yeah.
So we moved and we continued manufacturing in Pune.
Where does Pune stand in that ranking of cities that you mentioned in terms of clean air?
It's not in the 10 most polluted, but I think it is in the 20. It is in the top 20. Funnily, Khadki features very high in the polluted list. So, for whatever reason, I think maybe the monitor there reports very high levels or something. But yeah,
Interesting.
Pune is quite polluted.
Oh well. Okay, so now coming back to your outlook, now you're an entrepreneur. You have a startup that's been in operation now for
6 years.
6 years.
6 plus, yeah.
Yeah. What is your trajectory going forward? Do you intend to raise more funds? Are you looking at the unicorn word or something?
Well, I think not unicorn per se, because that $1 billion valuation and all is one part, but I think so. We are raising funds and we've closed our first formal round of funding. So I think it'll be out soon, more information on that. But it's through a PSU that we've raised funds.
Mm-hmm.
So from the Startup India program, we've got equity funding, and so we are getting formally organized in that sense. But we are not chasing any crazy, what is that, Series A, Series B, Series C thing. And for us, the impact is important. For us, we measure it by, how many people are using the air quality data, how many solutions are we able to build around air quality. And we have grown now beyond air quality to tracking all emissions.
Mm-hmm.
So we are also getting into methane emissions. We are getting into the more on the industrial side, working with the industries to fix the emissions problem.
Yeah.
So we are in that sense shifting gears from public awareness, which we will continue doing, but working with the sources of emissions.
In one of your interviews, you had mentioned the BRSR report.
Yes.
And the need for companies to disclose how much
Yes.
polluting. So you're working with companies.
So we've actually downloaded all the BRSR data from SEBI, and we are analyzing who's reported how much. It's a mess. Frankly, the way BRSR is being reported, it's nearly unusable.
I see.
Because the standardization is not adequate, I would say. People are using different units so that you can't really compare IOCL to a BPCL
Right.
to a Tata Steel.
Yeah.
So I think fundamentally the problem in India is a standardization problem. But it will happen. I mean, it's very, very early days of something like this.
Yeah.
So, but we believe that, so we are working in building a BRSR solution in terms of reporting, but also in terms of tracking it in real time.
Yeah.
Because BRSR is an end of the year event, once a year event. Whereas we want to work with them on a daily basis.
Sure.
So whatever goes into the BRSR, especially from the emissions perspective, we want to give a daily report to the stakeholders.
Given the issues with the data, what do you think of these funds, ESG funds that are meant to track?
I have not really gone that far. I think the funds.
I mean, presumably they are relying on this data to make a judgment.
I think they are. The premise is good. That investments should be made in companies which are doing better on ESG or BRSR. I think the data is very poor. I think they're not using the right. So they typically use what is known as emissions factors. They don't use monitored data. Globally, this is a problem. They use computed data. So you know that, okay, Thermax has X number of boilers or X pharmacy has so many boilers. You can just estimate what their emissions will be.
Yes.
You're not actually going and measuring anything. So this is all an Excel sheet based thing.
Excel gymnastics.
It's an Excel gymnastics, and we are not believers of Excel per se. I mean, it is a good tool, but it does not reflect reality, is our belief. So we think not enough is being done on the ground. So maybe it's a decent starting point, but it significantly falls short of what is needed.
Yeah, yeah.
For any intelligent person to know that, and this we know from the methane and PM 2.5 story, that the emissions are sometimes 50x or 100x more than what is calculated.
Yeah. Wow.
So you are off by that margin.
Yeah.
So then it's a nearly meaningless number, because any number which is off by that margin
Yeah.
is quite a bit off.
So I'm guessing you're not an investor in ESG funds.
Frankly, I've thought about this and I said it's too complex for me to try to merge that, because I'm struggling with running a business. To really understand the merit of, certain investments, I think is beyond my scope of understanding.
Yeah.
So I said I'm just going to let, the 4-star, 5-star, whoever is rating the funds to do that job.
Right.
And I leave it to the ratings agencies.
So now let's come to your mutual fund portfolio. I think you mentioned that there's a fund that you've been invested in for the past 10 years now.
2014, yeah, I think when it launched.
Almost 10 years.
Correct. Yeah, so Parag Parikh, we've actually met. I mean, my father has met him, is what I understand. I was not there, of course.
Mr. Parag.
Mr. Parag Parikh. And so his philosophy we knew. And I think we are more of, and in fact, back in the day when the HDFC fund manager, Prashant Jain. So my father and my sister used to track individuals, and their philosophies and then invest in them rather than the fund house.
Yeah.
So when he launched, earlier we had gone to him for a portfolio management service. And I think he was in the process of launching the fund. He said, just wait.
Yeah.
So when he launched the fund, we said, yeah, all three of us invested in it.
It's amazing. And you didn't have the temptation that when market's up, let's redeem. Or there's a crash, let's redeem. You never had that.
I was never following the market that closely, honestly. Now I open my portfolio once a week. But back then, once in 6 months, I used to open. So in that sense, we are all engineers, so we never used to track the financial markets that closely. Unless it makes it to the headline. If the market really crashes and it makes it to the headline, then we know what's happening. But if it doesn't come on the front page, then we don't really know what's happening.
Yeah. But what made you change? Why is it 1 week now?
Now, because I have a lot of SIPs going on.
Yeah.
And now the tools are more accessible. I have it on my phone. So I can just open the app and I can see the daily returns, I can see the weekly returns. I think the accessibility, back then I don't think I had it also organized in one tool. As a retail investor, because we used to do always direct through mutual fund websites, so there was no consolidated view. Now I think it's because of the tool. That time I had a smartphone, I'm sure, but I don't think I was tracking it on the phone.
But now that you're seeing it weekly, does it make you panic more? Does it make you act more than you would have otherwise?
I think I use value research again, and I use their tool. They have this alerts thing, so I just watch out for that, honestly.
Right.
And no, it doesn't make me panic or anything. But in terms of starting and stopping STPs or SIPs, I do sometimes take decisions based on the alerts they issue. I think that's pretty much all that I would do. But withdrawals are still very lumpy. We don't follow a methodology for withdrawals.
Whenever you have a business.
Whenever we have a need, we are buying a car, we are doing something, then we just take a chunk out. And I don't know if that's the right or wrong thing to do, but that's the only thing we do.
And you have the same equity debt split or 50?
Now I think equity is more. Now equity is over time, because all the SIPs are equity SIPs. So over time, because
Roughly what would that be? 60?
I think it's 65 is equity now. Yeah, I just checked before coming this time. So I think 68 or something is the equity ratio.
Because markets have rallied so much.
Market probably have rallied and the SIPs have continued.
Yeah.
So PPFS has gone up quite a lot, and then so hybrid, I guess, is considered an equity or something like that. Right? They have
For tax purpose.
Correct. So I do put a lot in hybrid also.
Yeah.
So that's how.
How many funds do you have in total?
So currently I must be having about 12, both equity, hybrid and debt included, 12 to 14. I think they recommend 6 or something, right? I don't know how much does value research recommend, but I'm trying to bring it down. Initially we had a lot of the
Regular.
regular funds, because we used to do it through people.
Yeah.
So over time, we've been redeeming the regular funds and moving to direct. So
Now, in terms of your goals, you've already got a house, you got a car.
no, I don't have my own. My parents have a house. I'm in a rented home.
Yeah.
So me and my family, we're in a rented home. But yeah,
So that's on the cards to buy a home.
not really. No, I don't plan to buy a house. I think we are happy with rented homes. So because to be fair, parents' home is in our home. Then we keep going there.
Yeah.
So
I don't need to really.
I don't need to, and I don't want to be locked into a place as yet.
Yeah.
So, but rentals are working out well. If it was Bombay, then the rents were pinching, but here it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So what expenses do you have coming up that you?
honestly, the kid expenses quite a bit. Medical expenses do hit. There was a few times that I have, and you were admitted, but I was also admitted not too long back. In 3 days, it's like 2.5, 3 lakhs.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So that is the one thing I've kept. For the medical is of course there are insurance policies, but even outside of insurance, I know that from personal experience that when you have to buy medicines which are not covered, it's quite crazy.
What kind of health insurance covered you have?
I think I have 12 lakhs or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I don't have to recall, but it's upwards of 10. Yeah.
For you and your family, or just you?
They are there in the policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my wife has her own policy also from her workplace.
Right.
So, but my company, we have not yet started giving out insurance policies. We are just 12, 14, 15 people.
Yeah.
So we have not yet reached that stage. So everybody has their own individual policies.
Right.
So she has her, which is also quite substantial. Yeah.
So when you had your hospitalization, the insurance covered most of it?
It covered, yeah, quite a lot of it. So I've been hospitalized twice in the last 4 years, both for surgeries, and I think each one was about 3 to 4 lakhs. But yeah, insurance covered the bulk of it.
Was it painful, the claims process?
No, to be honest, the first time it was not cashless, but I submitted everything and they covered 95%, I think. Second time was cashless.
Yeah.
So it was quite a good experience.
And do you have an agent for it, insurance agent?
I have New India Assurance, the government one, and we just paid online.
Right.
So, but even claims we don't go through an agent. I think there is someone in the family who reminds my parents.
That must be the agent.
That must be the agent, I think, but I don't know what he does because other than reminder to pay the premium.
I mean, that's pretty much all they do.
One job for the agent. Yeah, I don't know what the profile job definition of a health insurance agent is, but he seems to be alright. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I haven't met him in 5-6 years, but yeah. So yeah, I mean health insurance, I think it's been alright. Yeah.
Fair enough. What about retirement? Are you one of those fans of early retirement? Or?
I see that whole retirement and the work-life balance thing. And this probably more so now than in the organized sector jobs, corporate jobs that I had. I don't view it as a work-life balance situation because it's a bit purpose-driven. So I see this continuing for good because the kind of problem, and my dad is 75, he pitches into the office right now. But even my mom actually to some extent. But I don't think there's going to be anything called retirement because we are more driven by the problems we are solving.
Yeah, it's not really work, it's more.
It's not that to that extent.
Yeah.
Because nobody's even right now asking you to show up in the office. But
Yeah.
maybe do show up.
That's amazing. That's the best place to
It's interesting, I think, to see how long it holds up. But for now, it's looking like it doesn't feel like a burden to get to work ever.
But financially, at the back of your mind, do you have an amount that you think, or an age, or some way that let's say you do NPS or something?
What is NPS?
National Pension System.
National pension. No, I don't do NPS. I do ELSS, of course. So that 1.5L or something we do ELSS. I think from a personal perspective, yeah, there is a number in mind which will give a little bit more comfort than what I have right now. So I mean, I'm halfway there, a little less than halfway there.
Yeah.
But I think most people say 10 CR kind of gives you a decent cushion these days.
We just did a story on
is that
FIRE,
so?
financial independence and retirement.
Okay, I missed that. So
Yeah.
what was the...
So you're right, different people have different numbers,
Ah.
but 10 to 20 is
10
quite
is
common.
early. I think I'm 43, so at this stage, yeah. But I feel, yeah, about 10, 12 can make you comfortable. Then the money will grow quite well if you manage it at
Yeah.
10%. Then it's a reasonable one. But that, will not be a reason to retire. Because we are working in a space where, problems are not going to stop.
Yeah.
Pollution and climate is a challenging space.
Fantastic. Before we finish, anything that you'd like to add about money and about a career that you think our viewers should keep in mind from your life experiences?
I think money and financial security is a very critical aspect. I think the one thing that I've sorely missed is having a consistent guide. Because I've been jumping from resource to resource or a source of information, and somebody that one can relate to and talk to at one's own level. Because there are all these very, very senior people. The Parag Parikhs or the Vainamana, his son, and those you can't approach. They are very big, and we are very young and all. So I feel that if there was a way for someone to speak to people of the 35, 40, 45 age group at their level on a one-on-one or in-person, if I've always, and I came to you asking for that RIA person and I met him, very nice person. But I think we need more of that. We need hundreds of such people, honestly.
Yeah.
And cities like Bombay and Pune need thousands of such people. I think that is one thing which is sorely lacking, is that I should just be able to call up someone, drop in once a month, have a coffee and just explain to him where I am in life with regards to finances.
Yeah.
And he should just be able to course correct, and he can charge a fee. I don't mind. Something reasonable. It doesn't have to be astronomical fees. But that I feel is inaccessible.
Yeah.
In a country like ours, it doesn't make any sense that it's not there. But otherwise, I would tell everyone that read as much as you can, because these portals, including Mint, is extremely resourceful, and I think they are so clear in what they report. So I don't at all browse Insta and YouTube and all that. I've been hearing this influencer debate, and I have heard you also. But I've not heard a single talk or a video from them. So those I don't even view them as credible. But people who write stories, I think, are the ones that I track. And so I think combining these online digital portals with a real world person is the best story for a 40-year-old to engage with.
Well said. Great. Thank you so much for sparing your time. It was lovely catching up again.
My pleasure.
Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.